Hey everyone, welcome to the Craft Beer Professionals 2025 Spring Virtual Conference. Small Batch Standard is pumped to be the day one sponsor, and we're even more excited to help you generate more profit. Right now, today, it has never been harder to generate profit in the craft brewing industry. And here's why. If these two graphs don't paint a clear picture of what's happening in craft today, I don't know what will. In order to help you navigate this, we have put something together just for you. We call it the Small Batch Standard Profit Plays. These are excerpts from our profit playbook and include our top strategies for boosting profit at your brewery. And because you're here today, you get those plays for free. So head over to sbstandard.com/CBP to claim your copy. Thanks for being here and enjoy the talk.
Hello, hello. Welcome to Words on Tap. I'm Natalie Cross. I'm the lead digital strategist with Get Hoptimized. We are a digital marketing agency for the craft brew industry. And today we're going to take a magnified look at what copywriting is, what it should look like, and what are some, common mistakes, errors, and ways to make your copywriting better as a whole for brewers and everyone in the craft beer industry and craft beer brands. So yeah, let's jump right into it. So asking you a quick question here. Have you ever read a brewery's social post, an email, a menu description, and felt nothing? There wasn't really much there. There wasn't much to get you excited about it, make you feel anything, maybe. It happens a lot. So you probably think of maybe one or two examples that you've seen recently, even your own, right? There's always room to improve. Today, we're definitely going to fix that. We're going to look into a little bit of the psychology of what makes copywriting good and the best ways to put that in practice. So quick overview for you on what we're going to look at today. Part one is going to be just discovering really why copywriting matters. Why does it matter? Why do we care about it? Why do you hear it so much? Why do you hear us marketers talk about it so much? Part two is going to be thinking like your customer, not your brand. Sounds self-explanatory, sounds pretty simple, but you would be surprised that just that simple mindset shift can really help your copy in the long run. Part three is going to be a quick exercise looking at some graphics and just doing a brief application of what we've been talking about and learning, just to give you some more context around copy in general. A little bit about me. You could definitely see from some of these shots here, I'm a bit of an adventurer. I've been digital marketing for 6 years. I'm the lead content manager and digital strategist at Get Hoptimized. Like I said, we do digital marketing for the craft beer industry. I'm an avid skier, an equestrian, and a dog lover. You can see here doing all three. That top right picture is with my dog, Nina. And that was actually in Big Bear. And believe it or not, as small as she is, she loves to hike and jump up on rocks, and she's extremely athletic for her tiny size. So it's a little bit about me. All right, so getting right into it. Why copywriting really matters. Why do we talk about it? Why does it matter? Why should you care? Why do your customers care? So copywriting is definitely everywhere, right? It matters more than ever too. Good copywriting is extremely important. In the day and age that we live in, people have such a short attention span. I mean, with TikTok and, short form content, people really only have a fraction of a second, a couple seconds max that they look at something and then you have their attention. It doesn't take very much to sway their attention. We scroll on our phones all day, every day. It takes a lot to really capture someone's attention. So where do you see copywriting? And this kind of goes into the everywhere statement, right? It's on your website. It's on landing pages, core landing pages, things that you use to market campaigns and different initiatives that you're running for your brewery. It's in your email marketing. It's going out directly to your customers and your own list, your own channels. It's in your social posts, right? It's in any in-house graphics and flyers. People walking around in your tap room, they're looking around, and there's stuff up on the TV screens, there's things on the walls, in the bathrooms, all over the brewery on cork boards. You want that to be captivating. You want them to see it and read it rather than just kind of walk past it, right? It's in your digital ads. That was a little bit more self-explanatory. And then SMS being your text marketing. Text marketing is an extremely sensitive owned channel. All of us, signing up for text marketing, it's a very personal thing to have a brand or get marketing to our phones, right? To get texted ads, basically. So it's even more important over there. All right, moving forward a little bit here. A really important concept to understand, and this is just a really solid general marketing concept to wrap your brain around, is that people buy a feeling, not necessarily a product. It's really important to understand that there's a concept around how you feel about something versus exactly what it is. For example, a Rolex, right? No one buys a Rolex because they need to tell time, right? It's because it makes them feel something. It makes them, proud of the product itself. So further down into that concept, I wanted to share a statistic with you that 8 in 10 people only read the headline. So imagine a poster or a graphic on social media or something with lots of text on it, which you see more often than not, right? Where we've all been guilty of that, putting every bit of information on something. Maybe it's all the same text size, and it's just like, okay, we just got to put all the information out there and get it all up. Not usually the best idea, because people really only read the first little bit of text, and usually only the biggest text. So thinking through that psychology of making sure that it's not just something that is impactful, which we'll get into a little bit later, but it's also very visible on whatever piece of marketing collateral that you're showing it on. And then in this digital world as a whole too, your customers are always subconsciously asking themselves questions. So that comes back to the buying a feeling rather than the product. They're asking these questions subconsciously. We all do. Not something necessarily that you automatically think of and you think through every single time, like a school project, right? But we all think it before we buy something, attend an event, or invest time in something. And those questions are going to be right up here, and these are simplified. So what do I get out of it? Why should I care? And what makes it better than everything else? What am I getting out of this specific thing? Why should I spend my money on it? Why should I care about it to spend my money on it? Or my time, resources, energy? And why should I do this one versus something else just like it? So focusing in on the uniqueness of it, right? The feeling, not necessarily the product, because at the end of the day, there's lots of craft beer, right? And it's important to hone in on why your product is better than everyone else's, why your event is better than everyone else's. And that is done through emotion and copywriting. So another big theme is to think like your customer and not your brand. We've definitely all been guilty of this before, and it makes sense, right? We're passionate about the brand. We're passionate about the product. We believe in the product. We love the product. That's why we do what we do. For example, you're a craft brewer. You're excited about this new batch you have coming out, the small batch release. You love the product, believe in the product. Taproom manager, you guys are all in on it together, and you just want to talk about the beer and you want to get excited about it. But on top of that, we also have to understand there might be lots of other craft breweries in the area, right? And they all have their own things going on, their own product as well. So how do we talk about the beer? How do we talk about the product and make it unique and invoke that emotion, right? Not just say, we have a cool beer, come try it, right? What do we say on top of that to make an impact on the customer and influence their decision to buy from you or to spend time with you at your tap room versus a different one? With that, we have to think like the customer. So here are a few examples of what your audience is going to be getting out of the event, the discount, the product, and then the emotion that's also attached to it. So, for example, working backwards here, so we have contests, giveaways, retail swag, anything like that. What kind of investment, what kind of thing does the customer put into that? Or what is the outcome of that? So resources and money for giveaways. And what kind of emotion would someone feel, would you feel if you won a t-shirt from the brewery? If you won a giveaway, a raffle, you would feel a sense of pride, right, that you won. Safety maybe in your decision to participate because there's that potential to win. What about, to go beer, ordering ahead, grab and go? That's something that could save you time, save your customer time. How do you lean into that emotion? How do you make it, better than just saying, hey, we have to go beer? It can provide the customer freedom in the fact that they can just go in and pick it up, and then they don't have to worry about, sitting around and waiting for anything. The pleasure of being able to enjoy your beer at home, maybe share with friends, right? Leaning into the emotion behind that. Something else that could provide that sense of, community is philanthropic fundraisers, local markets. Sometimes I've seen, breweries take, parts of the parking lot or areas near them to host local markets. That sense of community comes with feelings of safety, love, that sense of belonging, right? So leaning into that when promoting events of that aspect. Things that could provide a sense of status, loyalty clubs, newsletter subscribers, any audience exclusive deals or happenings. Feeling a sense of pride, respect, importance for those. This one I definitely want to highlight as important too, because lots of places have loyalty clubs, right? And newsletter subscribers and other exclusive deals. So making a point to stand out with emotion on this one is very important. Leaning into the pride, the importance, the feeling of importance, belonging to something like that. Another sense of meaning and belonging could be, the clubs, like I was talking about, loyalty clubs. Live music is another good one for that. So being around other people who like the same kind of music as you, contentment in that same sense of belonging and feeling that goes into live music. Beer dinners as well. That's another kind of like exclusive, audience exclusive deal. And then here at the end is virtue. So that being like pride, morality, that definitely goes into something like sporting events, right? Being a part of a group of people who are all cheering on the same team. Fundraisers can also be thrown into that. Holiday celebrations as well, feeling that sense of morality and virtue that goes along with that. So just to give a strong example of the fact that pretty much anything you do, anything you promote, there is an emotion attached to it. There's a reason behind why we attend, more than just the black and white. Not just something physical that we got out of it. A T-shirt, whatever it might be. But there's a reason for your customer to attend or participate in certain things. So again, coming back to that, thinking like your customer, what they get out of it, why should they care, why are they doing this, rather than thinking about your brand and talking about the brand itself. It's still very important to touch on that, but with most of these events, you want to lean into how you're making the customer feel. What did they get out of this? So with all that being said, we're going to move into some exercises and common mistakes. These are just going to be a couple graphics to really give you a good example of what I'm talking about. Some of this is very, abstract and can get a little confusing. So going to show you in practice what that looks like, what not to do, and then what to do, and then why both of those are the way that they are. So looking at this one, there is a lot wrong with this graphic. And, on the outside looking in, looking at this on a slide, right, and paying close attention to it, you might be like, okay, this is a club, right? $50 a year, 85 for couples. You can probably piece this together if you look at it long enough, right? But remembering that, our customers are not going to look at this very long, right? They're probably really only going to read that first headline, Copper Kettle Club, you know? And to think about that, what does that mean? What is attached to that? There's a couple layers that are missing here. So not only what does that mean, but what is someone going to get out of that, right? It's missing both of those things. Um, so looking through the rest of this too, obviously you can see there's some more copy on here and it's kind of buried, right? There's not a lot here. So imagine seeing this on a big screen. There's some of this is just going to get completely lost in the graphic itself. So to point out some of the most glaring problems with this, the headline, right, for one, is just nondescript. Unless you already know what that is, it's just not going to help you understand what's going on with this. What is the Copper Kettle Club? Why do I care? This might be okay for something internally that you use to, distribute within the Copper Kettle Club, where everyone already knows what that is, you're already a member. But to advertise this, that's not descriptive enough. The pricing and the text comes first, and we don't even know what we're paying for yet. So we see this $50 a year, we see this 85, and you can even spot another mistake here, which is that one says a year and then there's no duration on the other one. So that's also confusing, right? And this is more of a sort of an exercise identifying good graphics versus bad for promos. The actual benefits, and you may have not even seen this until now, is right here. So what you get out of it, right? Club events, Thirsty Thursdays, merch, year-round discounts. There's even another layer here that's missing. Like, what is Thirsty Thursdays? You don't really have a lot of context around that. Sure, you could ask somebody, but that's not selling me on it, right? Again, club events. Why do I care? What about the club events? How should I feel about that? Are they exclusive? Are they, special releases? Like, what is the club event? How should I feel about these club events? And that's how you're going to further sell me on the club concept, right? We're talking about that emotion. How's it going to make me feel? So those are all the most glaring errors on this one. Obviously, there's probably some better ways to present this as well, especially visually. Like I was talking about with that copy hierarchy, it would be better to move some of this around. But for the most part, there's not a lot of emotion here, right? There's some kind of facts and then a very nondescript headline. So those are the biggest issues with this one. What's wrong with this? This one's a little bit better, right? But this one really drives home the point of people only really read the headline. 8 out of 10 people are only going to read the headline. Just at a glance, if I, switch quickly back and forth between these, what's the text you saw? The full things, right? What does that mean? We don't know. that doesn't give you much context, right? So pointing out more of what's wrong with this one is that the fall things is the name of the event, but we don't know really what that's about. If you look really, really close, zoom into your screen a little bit here, it does say Fall Festival and it gives you a date. But that's so far below and so small compared to fall things, it's easily missed, right? And the colors are kind of the same, so it's very easily missed. But what the biggest point of takeaway from this headline is, Fall Things doesn't have an emotion to it. This is a sort of a word play on, a Blink-182 song. But if you don't know that and you're, just looking at this briefly, you don't understand anything about what this event is. And it doesn't answer my question immediately of what do I get out of it? Why do I care? Looking forward to the rest of it is that the benefits are really small and pretty generic. So it gives us things like beer, music, food, contest, You know, again, that's another larger text on here with a lighter background. So you're definitely going to see that. So your eyes go here to about here, right? Again, not descriptive. You see kind of at the bottom here, there's some more description, but this is the kind of stuff, right? Fall flavors, beer releases, mini pumpkin decorating. But again, why do I care about these fall flavors? What's so exciting about these fall flavors? Mini pumpkin decorating. Why do I care about that? You know, how's that going to make me feel doing that? You know, getting into the fall spirit. It's going to be a fun activity to do with friends, you know, a date night. You know, how can we phrase that better so that it's not just a blanket description of what's happening, and it gives me more emotion, more reason to feel like I would like to attend this event. And then obviously the copy hierarchy could be better here too, seeing as 8 out of 10 people are really only going to read fall things, right? And there's just so much going on in this graphic overall. This is a good example of focusing on the key values of why your customer should care. And it's not always best practice to put every single detail on the graphic themselves either. So with that being said, we're going to move on to this one to redirect to a little bit more positive topic. What's going on right with this copy? This graphic is definitely better. There are a few things here that are better practices. So right off the bat, the headline has way more emotional copy in it. The word score is going to be that actionable verb that can, you know, help grant that excitement towards getting a prize. Right? We talked about what does someone get out of a giveaway or an event like this. Why should your customer care? Well, they can score a prize. That's why they should care, right? So that's definitely leaning more towards that emotional aspect of writing. You read this on a wall, you read this on, you know, a social media post or a TV screen, and you say, whoa, score prizes. I need to know more about that. You know, what kind of prizes? How do I get in on this? It immediately kind of starts that process of needing to learn more and giving you that emotional reaction that you're looking for. This one was for a bingo for President's Day, so had a little word play on presidential prizes, you know, leaning into the you know, the size of the prize, you know, importance of the prize, you can say. So say, you know, basically score big prizes, you know. And if that's all you read on this graphic, that will definitely hook you in to learn more. It generates that emotional response that makes you want to learn more about this event. Now, reading further, you know, the actual amount of copy on this graphic is pretty minimal. There's not too much going on here, just the most important stuff. Do we have the prizes listed on here? No, but we on the finished version of this graphic, there's a QR code and people could scan and read more details, a really long kind of like thing about the exact details included in this event, which is eventually where you want to go to begin with. You want people to take action and sign up for the event, buy tickets, you know, purchase the pre-order, whatever you're trying to sell. But with this graphic, we just touch on the key points. Buying the bingo card, get your first beer, and get a bonus card. Just clean and simple. That's what you're going to get out of it. Date and time. You have to be there. It's going to be amazing. There's going to be prizes. There's going to be big prizes. You got to be there. Again, leaning on the emotional side of the event. People know what bingo is for the most part. You don't have to, you know, go into crazy detail about that. But we do need to say, why should you care about this bingo? Why does this bingo matter? And why should you spend time at it, right? So yeah, then there's another important detail on here, which is, you know, the taco truck that's going to be there. It's lower down on the graphic. Again, just kind of a bonus advice on graphic hierarchy, making sure that the biggest, most important piece of the information is in the headline, and that it's emotionally grabbing, gives you that sort of hook to learn more, right? Some common mistakes here are listed. So we have a few things that are spotted quite a lot in copy, especially by novice writers or people that aren't quite familiar with how to write specifically to their customers yet. There's some common pitfalls to fall into that we all have before. You might kind of think of something as I go through these and say, oh yeah, definitely did that before, as we all did. One of those being too many we and I statements. We want to make the customer feel special. We want to make them the hero. We want to point out what they're going to get out of it, right? Again, think like your customer, not your brand. So, for example, we brew our beer with the finest ingredients. Okay, that's definitely a we statement, and that's great, and that's probably true, right? But why would the customer care about that? Why is that important to them? Because they're going to savor that craftsmanship in every single sip. Say that 5 times fast. And they're going to enjoy that flavor. They're going to appreciate the craftsmanship that went into that, right? The fine ingredients that went into that. So again, leaning into the customer and how they're going to perceive the benefit of what you're doing. Vague and generic descriptions. So we want to change that out with being specific and evoking that emotion. So instead of join us for a night of music, that doesn't tell me a lot. I'm not excited about that. I would want to learn more for sure. So another way to rephrase that is lose yourself in whoever the artist is. Lose yourself in their guitar riffs. Right now you're there. Now you're thinking about it. You're sitting there with a cold craft beer in hand, and you're enjoying this beautiful live music that's going to be at this tap room. That makes you feel, right? That's something your customer wants to feel. That's going to push them to say, you know what? That would be so nice to sit there on a Friday night and enjoy so and so's music while I sit with some friends and enjoy beer. That's how you get them to show up for that event rather than just saying, come see it, right? And that's kind of self-explanatory as well. Another good one is going to be cliches and overused phrases. Writing something that only you could say, right? Something a little bit more creative. And this comes with practice as well. It comes with putting yourself in your customer's shoes and diving deeper and almost putting yourself there. How would you feel? What would you get out of that if you went to someone else's X event, right? So something like, don't miss out on this once in a lifetime event. Everyone kind of says that. It's a little bit overused. It's not super fun and exciting. The better way to say that would be, where else can you trade Rush albums with strangers who become friends over our signature Kolsch? Whoa, that's pretty cool, right? Now we're there, and this would be for a like vinyl night event, for example. You have more copy to explain that, but just with that alone, that's a hook, right? Where else can you do that? Where else can you enjoy delicious beer and talk about vinyls and nerd out about vinyls? So again, really leaning into the emotions, to the emotional side of what your customer is going to get out of this. And, just going to keep hammering that home, right? Think like your customer, not your brand. And think about how even you would want to be talked to about certain events. Why do they care? Why should they care? If you think like that constantly and you ask yourself those questions, anytime you go to write copy, anytime you go to put something together of that sort, write an email, put an email blast out, you'll quickly start to realize that there are lots of areas to improve, right? Lots of opportunities to improve. And it's always good to kind of go over some of that as well after you write it and say, is it answering these key questions? If I could zoom out and take myself out of this as the vendor, right, as the product, and look at it as a customer, how are they going to perceive this? If you ask yourself that every time, you're going to be catching quite a few things and improving along the way. So the too long didn't read version of this is that copywriting is everywhere digitally, and it definitely can be the difference. You think like your customer, not your brand. Everyone should put that on a Post-it note and put it on their desk somewhere to keep reminding themselves. Use actionable and engaging words, right? Verbs, descriptors, adjectives, feeling. Find the key benefits and pair it with an emotion that your audience can relate with. So not just come do this thing, join us, right? Why? Why should they care? Why should they join? find those emotional keywords. And then last point is to just avoid cliches and overcomplicated copy. You can do these things in less words. But yeah, that is pretty much it for my presentation. Again, my name is Natalie, and if you want to chat with me a little bit more about this, you want to learn more about how your copywriting can improve, would love to talk to you. There's a QR code on the screen, and let me know if anyone has any questions on that. I appreciate your time. Thank you.